Today, we have a distinguished speaker, Mr. Architect, Technologist Afi Muhaimin Jamalludin, to share his talk on the topic of AR/XR. Do you guys know what's AR and XR? AR, not architect, yeah? Augmented reality. XR, mixed reality. Yeah? A little bit about Mr. ARTS Afi Muhaimin Jamalludin is a professional architect and director of Studio Kaizen, a young company providing digital solutions ranging from system and apps development, video production, and immersive visualization, success, metaverse creation. He inspired to become the unicorn of Malaysia. He completed his Masters of Architecture in 2014 from the University of Brighton, United Kingdom, and then followed Studio Kaizen in 2020 as a means of pursuing his passion towards innovation in technology and their integration into the architecture profession. Without further ado, I welcome Mr. Afi Muhaimin Jamalludin to the stage.
Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to fellow architects, graduates and students. I am deeply humbled to be here at Day One President PAM today to be sharing regarding my topic of AR XR. Now I'm told by the organizers that my first session is going to be until 10:30 a.m. Before we go for a short break. Now we're not entirely going to hit that mark, so you might expect an earlier break today. So earlier break, earlier lunch, and so on and so forth. So before I begin my sharing session, may I have a show of hands? Any students here? No students at all. Okay. Any graduate architects here? Okay, lots of graduate architects, and of course the rest are, I believe, professionals. Okay, so without further ado, let's begin. All right. The disclaimer: this sharing session is for educational purposes only. Next. Hi, I'm Afi. Next, a little bit about myself. I am an architect and a technologist. So in other words, an artist. I'm the executive director of Studio Kaizen, so I'm a professional architect. I'm also a certified metaverse expert by the Blockchain Council, and I'm an all-around tech nerd. So everything technology is something of a passion of mine. Next.
Welcome to Studio Kaizen, your seamless digital solution. I am Annie May, Studio Kaizen's virtual assistant, here to assist you. Let me tell you a bit of what we do at Studio Kaizen. Our team is composed of young and talented individuals from different backgrounds, ranging from architects to software developers. By bringing together these talented individuals, we believe we can provide a seamless digital solution. In essence, Studio Kaizen is a digital company focused in system and app development, video production, and metaverse creation. We've developed a system and solution app to help developers, consultants, and contractors to manage project development from design inception to final completion much more efficiently. We call our system SK4COD, which stands for Studio Kaizen for Cloud on Duty. Our project and monitoring system is divided into several modules spread across each stage of a project. Each module is designed with a specific focus in mind, ranging from documentation management, inspection coordination, project tracking, and so on and so forth. Our system caters for all stakeholders of a project, namely the developers, consultants, and contractors, each with different levels of authorization and role types. The system is designed to be user-friendly and suitable for all scales of project development and for all stakeholders of a project. Each app can be customized to suit the client's specifications and requirements. At Studio Kaizen, we also provide video production services. Our team is constantly creating beautiful imagery, from aerial imagery to short documentaries. Fully equipped with our studio and various AV equipment. We seek to provide you quality video production services whether for physical events as well as hybrid and online live streaming events. Introducing ZenSpace, our humble event venue for small-scale seminars, forums, and product launches. With room for more than 50 people and fully equipped with state-of-the-art LED screen, ZenSpace is suitable for small-scale corporate events in a professional yet cozy environment. Whether you need a complete package or just the beautiful visuals or venue space, we believe we're the right fit for you. Last but not least, we also endeavor in creating the metaverse. From small-scale to large-scale cityscapes, we believe the metaverse is the future. We strive to create the multiverse, from high visual fidelity worlds to mobile-friendly environments. Whether you'd like to simulate the real world or create a surreal fantasy world, augment your world with the metaverse. That concludes our brief introduction of what Studio Kaizen is all about. Be sure to check out Studio Kaizen's YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok to keep up to date with what we're working on. Thank you.
Okay, so as you can see, Studio Kaizen is not an architecture firm per se, even though I'm trained as an architect, but Studio Kaizen is my way of exploring digitalization in the architecture profession. We do three things: system and app development, video production, and metaverse creation. Next. Okay, next. All right, so this session will be divided into two sessions. The first session, which is AR, mainly dealing about how we could use system and apps and how it could be used during project development and for the architecture practice. And the second session will touch upon XR, which is extended reality. Now let's talk about the problems in project development. Unfortunately, in a project development, there's going to be a lot of inconvenient wastage. So there's a lot of problems. So for example, it's less disruptive, meaning our industry moves really, really slow. As architect Rida alluded earlier in his opening, that the architecture profession, or rather the construction industry, is severely lacking behind. So it's less disruptive. Of course, it's extremely complex, being we're one of the professions that deal with a lot of stakeholders, from consultants to contractors to developers to the local authorities and so on and so forth. There's a lot of inefficient coordination due to that. Of course, there's the problem of ayam versus ite, meaning the consultant might say something, but the contractor might interpret it another way. Of course, there's a lot of multiple and disorganized data around. And because it's disorganized, it can be non-conclusive. And also, when you're an architect, there's going to be instances where the project is not right next to your office. So there's going to be a lot of inconvenience distances that you have to travel. Next, of course, human dependencies. Oh, tak habis lagi. Next, human dependencies. So again, like we just demonstrated, you have to depend on people. So, there's a tendency of, mistakes happening during the whole project development. And finally, ineffective decision making. This can be from the local authorities, or maybe the clients, or maybe the consultants themselves, or maybe the contractors themselves. So there's a lot of problems. Next. Thank you. Okay, let's take a look at some statistics of architects registered in Malaysia. So as of 2022, there's around 1,800 practices. But 74% of them are sole props. So meaning to say that the majority of the practices are smaller scale practices. So I believe with all the problems that are happening in the project development, especially for the smaller practices, we cannot afford to waste a lot of time during project development. Next. So I believe the solution is architecture needs to marry digital technology. So what does digital mean? I don't mean scanning your hard copy documents into a PDF. That's not what digital actually means. Even though it's digital, it's still not, it's still manual in a sense. So as you can see in the screen, digital technology is far and broad. There's a lot of types of technologies that is available nowadays. So this is a list compiled by CIDB in the Construction Revolution 4.0. So from Building Information Modeling, BIM, of course, I'm aware that everyone knows about it. Prefab and modular construction, autonomous construction, augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, cloud and real-time collaboration, 3D scanning and photogrammetry, big data and predictive analytics, the Internet of Things, 3D printing, additive manufacturing, advanced building materials, blockchain, and artificial intelligence. So these are the type of technologies that CIDB has already introduced. I should say highlighted, that we need to embrace for the future of the architecture profession. So in this session, we'll be touching on system and apps, which is a subset of big data and predictive analytics, Internet of Things, and cloud and real-time collaboration. Next. So introducing our system and application that we call SK4COD, which stands for Create Without Borders. So we synthesize the gig economy, so meaning it's not part of our basic services, but it's part of our supplementary services. So to value add our practice using the Internet of Things, IR 4.0, and so on and so forth. Next. Okay, so our tagline is Create Without Borders. We believe that by using technology, you could be anywhere in the world and you could still connect with each other. So I think, of course, if you can connect from some guy on Facebook, thousands of miles away, you can also do that with your projects, even though it's not, maybe as far as that. So next. All right, so what we've done is we've taken the basic services as per the Architect Rules 2010, and we've converted them into digital mediums. So in total, we have 21 system and apps in development. Next. So of course, in conventional practice, you have from your schematic design phase to your final completion phase, there's a lot of services that you need to provide the client. So we've taken the bulk of the services that you need to provide and streamlined the process by introducing the system and apps. Next, thank you. So each of these modules are intended to tackle a specific problem in a project development. So, but today we'll be talking more about our apps during the contract implementation and management phase, because this is the phase of the project which arguably takes the longest, ranging from maybe 12 months to up to a few years. So again, because our fee doesn't add if the project gets delayed, because it's fixed. So we need to be as efficient as possible when during that phase. Okay, next. Of course, having big data is actually crucial. So big data is essentially taking what you're keying it what data or site memo or RFI that you're keying into the system, and taking that information to provide you some analytical data to make you to help you process and give decisions much more quickly. Okay, next. So why? As I've explained earlier, there's a lot of problems. So let's take a look at some of the solutions that we think will be beneficial. So of course, by using an app, you could give better efficiency. So whether directly or indirectly. So maybe you save a lot more time. Maybe you save paper by not printing. Maybe you save manpower. Maybe you save, and so on and so forth. I think you get the gist. Next. Why? It's available anytime, anywhere. So having a lot of stakeholders all over Malaysia, you could potentially connect them at any time and anywhere. Next. Why? It acts as an anti-bribery management system. Having a system and apps, and later on blockchain, of course, is going to be ensure that every task in a project development is handled in full transparency, meaning no hanky-panky from any of the stakeholders in a project. Next. Why? Individual task tracking. So, of course, using a system, you could track the status of a task. So, meaning that if you have, say, a long list of things to do, such as you need to send a site memo to your contractor, then he needs to reply to you, then you need to reply back, and so on and so forth. By having this system, it allows you to track each of those tasks much more easily. Next. Why? There's a lot of whys here. Individual unit report card. So imagine that if you have a housing development project, you could trace the history of each unit from the beginning of the construction phase to the final completion phase, and effectively know the history of your construction via the use of a report card. Next. Again, why? Access to data analytics. Having data analytics helps you analyze, problems that could happen on site. So, of course, monthly when you're dealing with the monthly progress reports by the contractor, you could tell apart, you could tell that the project might be in trouble based on the data that is provided by the contractor. But having said that, sometimes the contractors may use that to their benefits, maybe changing the progress reports the next month and changing it again the next other month, and so on and so forth. So this happens a lot, especially in smaller scale projects. So myself, I've been handling a lot of smaller scale projects in Johor Bahru, affordable housing. So a lot of the contractors are below G6 grade, so their IT literacy is a bit bad. So this also helps with that a lot. Next. Why? Real-time data synchronization. Of course, if you're in Facebook, you post something, it immediately gets sent to everyone in your friends' contact list. So in the same respect, let's say you issue a site memo, it's instantaneous. Now you could do that in an email, but why do that in an email when this can do it for you in the system, and it shoots the email automatically without you having to type anything. Next. Time efficiency, of course, save time. Maybe you take time to produce reports that you need to send it to the client. So by having this, you could just press a button, print out the document, just send it to your clients. Easy. Why? Reduce wastage, paper, carbon footprint. Again, go paperless. Save a lot of money without using any paper. Next. Reduce misplaced documents. Again, this ties back with the human human dependency issue. Finding that stack of documents below those piles of other documents in that store behind those other documents. So, using a system and app, everything is going to be in your pocket. So no need to find those documents anymore, so to say. Next. And save valuable storage space. So, documents take a lot of space. So you need space, of course. Next. So this is a case study of one of our projects actually. 600 and plus housing units. So imagine all of the defects. This project is in the defect liability period. So there's a lot of complaints from the homeowners to the developers. Now, if you can look, if you can see there's a lot of complaints from homeowners, and it takes a lot of space in the site office. So instead of that, use an app, take it everywhere with you, open it from wherever you want, and so on. Next, please. Again, why? Standardization, wrong typo, no problem. Standardization, standardized report format. So of course, you need to make sure that your format, your report is consistent during the whole project duration. So by using an app, this is one of the ways. Next. Why? System adaptability. Now this goes against my previous point of having standardized data, but having a system and app, you could tailor-made to your specific needs. So we have our own in-house software developers. So if we would like to change, some parameters based on the client's requirements, we can do that as well. Okay, next. Why? Again, notification system. So having a notification system makes it so that, whenever something happens, you know about it straight away. Next, please. Again, why? Printing. Just send it to the print. So, it's a lot quicker than creating it in PowerPoint or creating it in Word document and so on and so forth. Then why? Systematic digital library. It's stored in the cloud, so all of your data is stored neatly, which you can sort based on the chronology of it. So we've designed this system for the four main stakeholders of a project, namely the developer, the consultant. So the consultant is not just the architect, but you can also have the CNS engineer, the M&E engineers, and the quantity surveyors on board as well. You also have the main contractor. So some of our apps are tailored specifically for them, which helps us in the long run. And finally, the end user. Sometimes the end user needs to know what's happening in the project. So by using this app, they also can know the status of it. Next. Right, so again, from the schematic design phase to the final completion phase, there's going to be a lot of stakeholders involved, but we've been focusing on, like I said, the contract implementation and management phase, which covers all of the developers, consultants, contractors, and the end user as well. So we believe that you need to use easily available and accessible technologies for them to be easily adopted by a lot of people. So we like to introduce two keywords, EADA and Kendi, which will make sense in a bit. So EADA is essentially your tool that you use or your gadget. So you need to have some hardware, and Kendi, you need to have some of your information. So think of it as your SOPs, and how you manage the office. You take that, combine them with software, you combine them with hardware, then you can use the app. Easy. So of course, we would like to use the smartphone because everyone has one. So that's the main technology that you could use. Next, please. In addition to that, you could use it with your your drones, your tablets, and your Windows via the web applications. So I've also included Wi-Fi and cloud storage because those are important as well. You of course need the internet, and of course you need the cloud for your data storage. And finally, your Kendi, which is your collection of information. So imagine having your flow charts, your checklists, your reports, your certificates, your letters, your statutory requirements, your contractual requirements, like your condition of contracts, and your management documents, such as your work program, all in a single app. So again, combining the two, you get a system and app. Okay, let's check out this video.
Hello again. Welcome to Studio Kaizen, your seamless digital solution. I am Annie, your virtual assistant. Welcome to our series of tutorials for using our project monitoring and management system SK4COD. Our management system is divided into several modules from the schematic design phase to the final completion phase. For our contract implementation and management phase, we have our suite of systems catered specifically during the construction period, which we call CONSI, which stands for Consultant Gunner System Supervision and Inspection. The suite of apps covers several aspects covering documentation management, task tracking, supervision and inspection during the construction period. CPR. Construction Progress Report, also known as CPR, is a system to manage construction documentation and monitoring for the contractors, consultants, and developers during the construction period. By using CPR, it allows the contractor to produce a standardized digital report. Developers and consultants will be able to monitor projects much more efficiently with the use of a system dashboard and data analytics. Each input by the contractor is recorded digitally, and the complete project history is stored in a cloud database, synchronized in real time. In essence, we believe CPR is beneficial for the construction industry, especially in construction management and monitoring for all project developers, consultants, and contractors alike in Malaysia. Inspection Plus. The Inspection Plus system is used to inspect the contractor's workmanship after the construction works have been completed before the issuance of the Certificate of Practical Completion. Inspection Plus deals with the workmanship compliance of the works in accordance with the Quality Assessment System for Building Construction Works, or QLASIC. The app utilizes the use of the smartphone camera on site to record the defects of the works, which are divided into building elements respectively. Each inspection will automatically generate a digital site report for each building ready for printing. Each report consists of statistics and data analytics of defects pending rectification by the contractor. Third Eye Inspection. The Third Eye Inspection system takes the big and heavy contract documents and compresses them to fit in your pocket. Use the app to record works on site and check whether they comply with the contract document specifications. BERIS. The Building e-Report System, also known as BERIS, is a defect management system for developers and homebuyers during the defect liability period. Each defect complaint by the homebuyers is stored, tracked, and updated in the system throughout the defect rectification process. The app is catered for the developer, homebuyer, consultants, and contractors with different levels of access. This concludes our brief introduction to the SK4COD suite of system and apps. For more information, visit the Studio Kaizen website or contact us directly at mstudiokaizen@gmail.com.
Okay, so like the video showcase, we're going to be talking about primarily four systems and apps that we've developed during the contract implementation and the final completion phase. So there's four of them: Third Eye Inspection, Construction Progress Report, Inspection Plus, and BERIS. our building e-report system. Next, please. All right, okay, so again, 3 of the apps will be used during the contract implementation phase. So, and one of them will be used during the defect liability period. Next, please. Again, CPR, or short for Construction Progress Report, is a digital, analytical, and interactive report for reporting the construction progress in a digital system. So if you would like to scan the QR code, you could check out our website, which highlights the details of that. But next. So here's some screenshots of the app in action. So of course, you have the contractor's physical progress, which is translated into infographics. You also have on the second screenshot over there, you could see that the site matters, such as the RFIs or the site memos or the NCRs, the architect instructions, and so on and so forth. Again, translated into a infographic. So you could essentially, the contractor or the consultant could log into the system and check out how many RFIs are pending. So again, in the third screenshot, you could say that there's an RFI, request for inspection and testing, your sample review forms, your site memos, NCRs, and so on and so forth. All of them are stored in the app. So you could potentially just use your smartphone and key in all of the data that you want. And you know, of course, when you send it, everyone will be notified of it. So in the fourth screenshot, this is an example. If you would like to issue an site memo to the contractor, so you would select which category of the document that you would like to fill in. Then you could fill in the particulars and send it to the contractor respectively. And the final screenshot is of the work progress, so your monthly work progress. Okay, next. So the Inspection Plus is another app that we've developed, which is a digital library. Again, collecting data from site inspections just to check the defects for the workmanship on site. Next, please. Again, the QR code if you want to check it out. So again, you're greeted by a login page, which for now, the app, you need to subscribe to the app to effectively see all of your projects inside of it. So for this example, in the second screenshot, you could see that there's a list of your projects all in there. And in the third screenshot, you could see that how many inspections that have been carried out by your staff. And the fourth one is of the inspection details of it. So let's say you have, your house has these types of spaces inside of them. You could check each room and see if they comply with QLASIC or not. And finally, the defect details. So entering your room, there you could see that there's a lot of the building elements that are listed down. So you could essentially, if there's a defect, you could take a picture of it and upload it into the system. So again, it becomes part of the final digital report, which again you can print out. Next. Third eye inspection. So third eye inspection is a site inspection system which we use drone technology essentially based on our interactive guidelines, namely statutory, contractual, and workmanship. So again, your contract documents are converted into a system and apps. So broken down into their respective chapters. And of course, you have your flow charts or your SOPs to see the progress of a project. So you could track it based on that flow chart itself. Of course, you have your checklist. So in this particular checklist, in the third screenshot, it's of the Housing Development Act, um, specifically Schedule G, stage 2A until 2H. So you can check your foundations until the completion of the building itself. And finally, you could have your drawings inside of it. So of course, this is actually version 1 of the app. So it's a PDF, even though I said, digital is not about scanning PDFs, but this one is a PDF. We're actually currently working on a 3D viewer, so you could import your BIM models and just check out your BIM models just in the app itself. Next, please. And finally, Beres, or Building e-report system. So this is an app used to manage complaints from the home buyers and help the developers deal with them, with the assistance of the consultants and the contractors effectively. Next, please. Now, again, you're greeted with a login page. Then, this is from the point of view of the purchaser, by the way. So the developer has a different login mechanism, which is much more suitable on the computer. But okay, so for the purchaser themselves, they'd be greeted with a dashboard which lists down how many defects that they've sent, how many are in progress, how many have been completed, and how many still pending. So with a press of the button, the Hantar Aduan button, you could essentially list down what the defect is at your home, where it is in the building, so maybe it's in your bedroom, and maybe if you want to add some more pictures, just to give a clearer indication of what's happening, you could do that as well. So when you send the defect, again, it tracks it. So in the fourth screenshot, you could see that it says there, tunggu ditugaskan, so meaning that you need to wait, the purchaser needs to wait for the developer to process the defect, and so on and so forth. And finally, in the third screenshot, actually, you could see that there's a list of, there's a history of all of the defect complaints in one place. So meaning if that one unit has 10 complaints already lodged, so there's gonna be 10 of them. And all of them have their own data, so meaning when you submitted, when it was rectified, and so on and so forth. Okay. Next, please. All right, so that kind of does it for part 1. So in essence, using a system and apps, we believe that it should be the norm to help us. Again, jobs are getting much more complicated. So I believe as humans, we have our limitations. So by using an app, it will help cover those deficiencies and help us practice much more effectively. Now the next part, XR, will be continued in part 2. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Afi. We completed a little bit earlier, but Ms. Afi, please stay on before we leave for a tea break. Just because takut we forget some of the questions. So we'll take up, maybe discuss little bit, 1 or 2 on the part 1. Okay. Just for the project, you are an architect by profession.
Yes.
And you are currently embarking a new digital agency as part of servicing the architecture firm.
Yes.
Can you tell a bit to the audience how the experience of embarking from architecture to the digital creating apps and digital? This is not an easy task to do, No. Just in a brief little bit, yeah.
Sure. So for myself, which we'll see more in part 2, something that I've been fascinated ever since I was studying. But even in school, creating something, videos, animations, and that kind of sort of thing, kind of helped me garner interest in this app building. Because to create an app, you need to understand some of the language that's involved, C++, Sharp. There's a lot of dads, but it started with personal interest. So, afterwards, of course, COVID. So, you know, COVID being a thing for 2 years, there's not a lot of things that you can do project wise. All of the construction has halted. Of course, during that time, with my small team and I have taken the time to research and learn about um, the digital transformation, respectively, because you still need to operate during the COVID period. And I think by going digital helps alleviate all of the problems during that process. It's not, I wouldn't say the system and apps is a complete perfect solution, but it's a step in the right direction. Because I think that, again, myself, taking a look at the other industries which are moving so fast, as architects, we are quite slow. So I think that's one of the main reasons which I've embarked to get us up to speed.
Thank you very much. Anyone wants to actually ask questions, or you want to leave it at the end? Ada Ada tak ada Ada.
Semua sudah lapar.
Semua dah lapar ah? At the end Alright. So thank you very much, Mr. Afi, for sharing. And ladies and gentlemen, we will start now for tea break. As to comply with COVID-19 safety measures, the refreshment will be served at 2 places. Those who are in the auditorium, kindly proceed to level 1. It's inside the gallery at the end, and also rooftop at level 8. The refreshment will serve in both places. We'll be resuming at 10:45. All right, please make your way here back at 10:45. Thank you very much. Now we are going to continue to this session, part 2. On part 1, we have actually covered, Mr. Afi have covered his app. And during this pandemic, there's a lot of young architects has created new apps on materiality for suppliers. And also one architect, particularly Mr. Fira, has actually created an app to charge his client so that his client put in his fee rather than the architect put the fee. So they cannot lie to him. Okay. So with that, without further ado, I will welcome Mr. Afi to the stage. For attendees, you need to stay till the end of the session, as the sign-out paper will only be collected after the event. I welcome Mr. Afi back.
Hello. Okay. So part 2. So before I begin, I hope this presentation might cause some motion sickness. So just be prepared for that, because it's a different way of presenting, essentially. Part 2, XR. Right. So I would like, you could see it. I'd like to begin this session with a quote. The future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. So what I'm about to share might sound new, but to be honest, in overseas, it's not really new. So again, we're playing catch up. Right. So again, talking about XR, I'll go to the definitions in a bit, but take a look at this simple chart. You have your human, you have your computer, and you have your environment. Combining all three creates mixed reality. Right. So extended reality is, well, of course, XR. XR stands for extended reality. Incorporates three main things. So virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. What is XR? So XR is an umbrella term used to describe, like I said, three of the technologies: augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. So changing the way on how we interact with the use of digital technology. Right. So again, augmented reality, mixed reality, and virtual reality is a subset of XR. So there are three main technologies, and they're slightly different from one another. But for augmented reality, it's a technology that augments the real world with digital objects, but it's not interactable. So meaning that they might have a digital object over here, you cannot touch it and interact with it. Virtual reality, on the other hand, is a computer-generated environment. So it's fully virtual. The one you're seeing right now is a virtual environment where you could put virtual objects and populate the space. Now, mixed reality, it's a merging of the physical and the virtual world to create new types of environments and visualization. So now the difference between mixed reality and augmented reality is that say you have a digital object in the real world, but you could essentially interact with it. Or think of holograms, and you could touch and move around the objects. Mixed reality. So these are the three main technologies which I believe we could use in architecture to move forward. So the extended reality spectrum covers different senses, such as your sense of sight, your hearing, and touch, and if it's in 4D, your smell. Okay, some to use these three technologies, you need to have a hardware. So augmented reality, you could use smart glasses or head-mounted displays. So for augmented reality, you can also use your smartphones, which is the most accessible technology to AR. For VR, you could use, again, virtual headsets. For example, the HTC Vive, Sony PlayStation, Google Daydream, Gear VR, and so on. Now, mixed reality, which you have the capability of interacting with the digital object, could use, as of now, the Microsoft HoloLens. So it's a headset which you wear on head, and essentially will project a virtual object into your peripheral vision, which you can, it will sense your hand, and you can interact with the digital object. So imagine having your uh, architecture or your building touch and feel in the real world. Right. So on the left hand side, you could see our real world. On the left hand side, you could see our virtual world. So mixed reality, virtual reality, and augmented reality sits in between the two. So this is one of the metaverses which I've created. Simple metaverse, really. So creating a fantasy city. To the next segment. Now, we're going to talk a bit about augmented reality. As you can see, I've jumped from my previous space into this other virtual space, which is based in Yokohama. Let's talk about how augmented reality is achieved. So there's a lot of technologies involved. Use motion sensing, use 3D modeling, take real-time tracking across your multimedia files, your images or your videos or your music. And you have intelligent tracking. All of these, technologies are used to achieve augmented reality. Finds the virtual world and Now, the technology behind augmented reality, you have computer vision. Similar to people's vision, that you can see, learn, and analyze and learn. Computer vision does the same thing. Computer sees the image, and from that it learns. So let's say, for example, taking the example of apps or defect inspections and so on. Let's say you want the computer to learn about what is the defect. For example, a crack in the building. What you do is that you teach the computer vision, you feed them with a lot of images or visual representations of the defect. Then, when it's learned it, will be able to recognize if that's a defect. That's computer vision. So in augmented reality, it takes high-level visual data and it translates into an understandable form. So there are two types of augmented reality. One is augmented reality with marker. So it uses computer vision to recognize an object in the real world. And from that, it will project a virtual object into the physical world. So as you can see on the right-hand side, there's a screenshot of the app, but there's a glitch in it, so it's not working. But if you download the Studio Kaizen app on the Play Store, so for example, this is one of the apps. So if you press vent, I know you're not going to be able to see this, but you could use that to scan the Studio Kaizen bunting, and it will project a virtual object into the real environment. So, if people can see, but they cannot see potentially, but you can essentially, by recognizing that image, the computer is smart enough to tell, okay, here's the thing, here's your marker, then you project the object in front of it, for example. Now, conversely, also have augmented reality without markers. So what does this mean? Without markers means that computer vision needs to try and recognize planes in the physical world. So usually a flat plane. So for example, if you have furniture, if you're shopping for furniture, for example, there's always an app that lets you put that virtual furniture in relation to the real world. But for it to do that, the computer needs to know where the horizontal plane, where the horizontal surface is before it could do that. So if it detects it, then it's going to put it in place. Again, this is used with a smartphone, so you do not necessarily need the headsets for it to function. I believe is the best way. Okay, what are the benefits of augmented reality? So firstly, it can enhance learning practices. So Google Expeditions, you could maybe travel from far away. Anatomy 4D, so maybe you want to learn a lot quicker, but of course, if you watch videos, there might be this limiting factor because essentially you're looking at a 2D plane, but if it's a 3D virtual object, you might learn a lot. And it increases business and organization performance. So creates unique digital experiences for customers. Number 3, it removes cognitive overload. So it makes all of the let's just say it heightens, it increases, should I say this, it makes it a lot more, lack of a better word, more amazing. Imagine you have instead of your logo that you would like to showcase or your branding, you can have a 3D virtual logo. For example, that Kansai paint bunting over there, maybe it's not just a shape, it can be a rotating or animated 3D model moving in space. And finally, it's versatile and time saving, increases mobility and accuracy. The technologies, a lot of the technologies can utilize the use of BIM models. So you could take your BIM models and incorporate them into this technology or your accurate models, essentially. Let's talk about virtual reality. So what is the virtual world? So again, virtual world is a computer-generated environment with imaginary objects. It's fully virtual. There's no real world. Essentially, you're cutting yourself out from the real world and moving into a virtual world, or like what you're seeing on the screen, right? So, what are the benefits of virtual reality? It is not entirely different from augmented reality in benefit. But with VR, you could also again experience 3D to 4D visuals. Again, maybe if you've designed something for your client and you want them to experience what it will be like for construction, you could use virtual reality to help them experience it and make them understand a lot easier. Sometimes there's still a even though with architecture practice we've moved to using uh, video or 3D animations using Lumion. There's always this in lack of interaction, which I think is key. Client understand. So different benefit of VR is you can create realistic scenarios. Get the use of simulations, or you could simulate wind, water, you simulate heat, so on and so forth. That's going to be very beneficial to you, especially in terms of designing building. You can test it out before um, constructing it, essentially. It's also a solution to complex problems and situations. So seeing it in 3D, in real time, makes it a lot easier to understand. Of course, with the advancement of computers and computer power, can get the best quality visualizations. Better the better the. Finally, distant medical solutions. This one, if you were a doctor and you would like to learn about the human anatomy, would potentially use VR to virtually do the surgery on them. So virtual reality devices. There's a lot of them. You have the Oculus Rift, a Google Cardboard, which is a very cheap option, Google headset, Samsung Gear, but it's not as especially the smartphone ones. They've expanded to the top tier virtual reality devices. Also have the HTC Vive and the Oculus Quest 2, Oculus Rift, and there's a lot of virtual reality devices. Now, even though I say that headsets, but these headsets is more of a get you 100% immersed in the virtual. You're seeing right now it's only like 60, 50% of immersion side of it. You really need the headsets because they will track your eye movement. There's a essentially you could experience. Let's say if you want to ride a roller coaster in virtual reality, and they will simulate the motion inside the virtual reality, so you can get motion sickness. Now, what's the difference between AR and VR? For augmented reality, augments the real world. So again, you have a physical world, our real world, then you put an object in it. Virtual reality does the opposite. Take away all of the physical world and do in a fully virtual world. Okay, in AR, you have a sense of presence in the physical world because physical world and you can still see surroundings. But in VR, you are fully immersed in that system under its mercy, unless you take the VR headsets off. VR can be marker based or markerless. So again, so the vision needs to find where the horizontal surface is, whereas in VR you do not, because virtual world. For streaming, augmented reality needs upwards to 100 megabit/second bandwidth. Streaming VR requires at least 50 megabits. This is if you're playing with a multiplayer or there's multiple people in space. With AR, of course, you don't need a headset. You can use your smartphone. VR, you can use VR without a headset, but again, it's not as immersive as compared to when you're wearing a. Right, so in AR, you can still in touch with the real world. AR, no longer in the real world. Now, let's talk about mixed reality. Right, so mixed reality is combination of is merging the physical and the virtual world to create environments where they coexist and you can interact with them at one time. So again, imagine having a digital object, the real world which you can touch. Right, so mixed reality devices, you need the Microsoft HoloLens or the Samsung HMD Odyssey. So these two are the main in terms of providing you the experience of mixed reality. They are quite, say, expensive. The HoloLens, for example, is around 3,500 US dollars, around what, 1,000 ringgit ish. To be clear, I'm not an ambassador of the headsets which I just talked about. I think I'm an ambassador for them. Please. Right. So again, physical world on the left hand side, have your digital world on the right hand side, or augmented reality and virtual reality and mixed reality sits in between. Virtual reality leans more towards the digital world, whereas the augmented reality leans towards more of the mixed reality sits in between, have that interaction capability. Okay, so the concept of virtual reality, VR, AR, and MR is not new. So it's been around for a while. So there are some examples in movies, or for example, in the show everyone has already seen, but you're fully immersed in the virtual world in the Matrix. It's a VR technology. In Ready Player One, again, you wear the headsets, then you again are transferred into a virtual world. So Ready Player One also is an example of virtual reality in the movie Ready Player One. All right, so in video games, so people talk about virtual reality, they cannot escape the fact that video games are one of the earlier virtual realities, so to say. So Second Life is considered one of them. This is a game which was used back in and I believe. And Fortnite, this is a relatively new game released in ends. So there are examples of virtual reality. You can play them on the computer essentially. Even in anime, which, of course, I like to watch a lot of anime. So this is one example of anime which uses that technology. It's called Uredeco. It combines the use of augmented reality, mixed reality. So if you can see in the image, there are architecture, and then you can see there's a lot of virtual objects, which is part of the design. So in the future, maybe could essentially change these skins of the architecture or virtual skins of the architecture. But see, there might not be just the physical architecture sense, but there might be an overlapping with virtual architecture as well. Right, example of in social media. Of course, everyone knows Instagram, Snapchat, filters. So again, that's an example of using augmented reality, but it's limited in your camera's viewfinder. What they do is they take part on your Okay, let's talk about the metaverse. So, metaverse is a product of XR. So, like it or not, the metaverse is here with us to stay. Okay, so now what is the metaverse? Put it simple, you think of the internet, the 2D web browser. Metaverse is that, but it's in 3D virtual worlds, 3D virtual spaces, which is interconnected with. So don't think of the metaverse as a 3D modeling exercise. Of it as an ecosystem. So the metaverse in its best form could be synchronous and live, in that you can connect with everyone or anyone across the world in the metaverse. Has its fully functioning economy, so maybe with the use of cryptocurrency, so buy digital assets for that space. It's an experience. So being architects, of course, you design experiences for your client. There's going to be a wide range of contributors. So it's not going to be just architects. It's going to be a lot of content creators, video producers, video editors, and so on. It's going to be a wide range of contributors. Finally, it's interoperable, meaning that there's not going to be one major platform. It's going to be decentralized. It's going to be interoperable with. So what are the economics in the metaverse? So you generate revenue inside the metaverse, the use of art galleries. For example, if you design an art gallery, then you have all of the artworks, might be NFTs, can interact and purchase. Business offices, which this is not going to be the popular one because so it's going to be very, very not popular, so to say. Working with your colleague inside of the metaverse. But this opens possibilities for you to collaborate with people all around the world. Doesn't need to be, can be from, can talk with metaverse. But games and casinos, of course, people are going to take advantage of that. There are some games that you could, meaning you play the game, play the metaverse, and you can earn some returns in terms of crypto. And finally, advertising. So there's a lot of brands such as already adopted the metaverse. They've released one of their collections, I believe, side of it. So there are a lot of decentralized protocols in the metaverse. There are payment networks, decentralized finances, and decentralized governance. The next one. So, what are the types of metaverse? There are two types: off-chain, on-chain. So, off-chain means there's no off. On-chain means there's a blockchain involved. We're going to go into detail of what the block covered previously in one of the PAM talks. But off-chain, you have a lot of software which you can use to create these metaverses. So you have Unreal Engine, you have Unity, Sensor, Mozilla Hubs, you develop beyond Godot. And so on blockchain, you have a few: Sandbox, Voxels, Decentraland, Virtual, C Infinity. So what can you do in the metaverse? Again, socialize, do your shopping. Again, say design a shop, and walk in, buy your latest entertainment. Of course, you could, again, for example, in this example, this presentation, I'm entertaining you via virtual trip from metaverse to metaverse. So from Yokohama just now, we've traveled to Switzerland. Gaming, of course, you could be other people in the metaverse. Finally, education. Again, if you want to learn more, you could potentially use the metaverse. If you combine the metaverse with animation, that's where the education makes it a lot simpler to learn something. For example, if you want to showcase process of building a building, do it in the metaverse. Oh, what are the benefits of the metaverse? Now, a lot of my talk is going to be a lot. It's going to be crisscrossing the item. Again, you could experience physical and digital sensory input simultaneously. Virtual decoration and imagery for clothing, spaces. Again, metaverse is a product of XR. It could be a combination of augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, all three. Collaborative remote work will be enhanced again, we mentioned earlier. The ability to see the world at greater depth. There are some metaverses that you could potentially simulate yourself being a fly, or imagine yourself being a small fly traveling around in bakeries and so on and so forth. You could experience it like that if you would like. There's also goat simulators. You could simulate yourself as being a goat. I'm not why, but you could do that. But intermix the surreal with the physical. Well, of course, your physical buildings could be as we are practicing now, but you could put, potentially different virtual facades on it that animate, colorize, or plastical. With that, there's going to be a lot of new roles. So architects might not just need to design physical architecture. Could potentially design virtual architecture, even virtual objects, for example. Of course, architects have been designing a lot of things aside from building installations to furniture, some even fashion. So imagine that in the virtual world. Education, creating a digital twin, or essentially taking your physical building and creating a virtual twin of it, allows you to practice with essentially virtually in the virtual world, for example. And of course, this is to upskill or reskill staff. Experience memories of real life entertainment which can be replicated by metaverse application. So this one, you could potentially, let's say, you would like to experience Dhaka in the year 1600, the metaverse to do it, travel inside of it. And number 8, making cultural experiences and arts available to all. These experiences can be set in chronological digital. So, of course, again, we're not limited only in Malaysia. There's going to be a lot of metaverse players overseas. So, of course, you could potentially learn about the culture. You do not need an expensive plane ticket to fly all the way to Barcelona. Maybe you could use metaverse, Barcelona metaverse of could experience that. Again, metaverse presents the opportunity to revolutionize expression and because you can be more creative, even more creative, to create new virtual venues for action. Of course, enhance commerce and entertainment. Lastly, of course, increase access to underserved population. You could not travel far away to your, said Barcelona, for example, but you could the metaverse serve them. Next, let's talk a bit about sustainability. So, you know, could provide a more efficient way of daily life tasks. Could save natural resources like fossil fuels, not traveling about everywhere, for example. Just log into the save cost and time, of course. If you this relates to number 2, say travel far away, just home and just or helps in reducing pollution. Again, relating to carbon footprint, using the cost in entertainment, senses your vision here. So in the metaverse, it creates a 3D image, and with your sets and track commerce, experience real life shopping center with more details. So imagine a Shopee, not a Shopee where you can just see the maybe a virtual 3D world of Shopee. I'm in by the models of it and touch, see if it's suitable. All products can be visualized virtually. Of course, if you have a 3D model of it, combining 3D scanning or create that object which you want to buy. Number 3, products can also be tried in 360 degrees on your course. So products themselves could be small or could, let's say, it's a big virtual space. Therefore, don't need to travel to the store. So saves time traveling and save. So imagine Grab, but you don't need to use Grab. You just go log into the metaverse, buy stuff from there, and they'll deliver it. Learning and training, of course, to learn real life experiences and save time. Of course, some training can be used. You do not physically need to be there. Just run the simulation training session inside the metaverse. They can repeat multiple times. So there's gonna be a change in business model from consultant think rate. Not know the answer to that. So skip the first point. The second point, design virtual architecture. Or of course, you could be a digital artist, a project manager, a digital urban developer, the artist. Again, simulate for construction. So that's really, really, really can travel to the historical past or the imagined future. So maybe you travel to Malacca in the year 2600, flying cars and stuff. Could be a potential. Please. All right, let's talk about architects and the metaverse. So again, overseas, there's a few architects that have already embarked. So one of it is Zaha Hadid Architect. They created Liberland metaverse. Essentially, it's a small metaverse, very very big, so to say. But I believe it's still process is not reached. Okay, we also have the Vice Media Group of Metaverse by Biak Ingel Group, big. So for this one, they've created a blockchain to Zaha Hadid's metaverse. They used the Decentraland metaverse based on the blockchain. They created a virtual space inside Decentraland or vice versa, essentially. Of course, Studio Kaizen. So we've built a lot of verses. This is one of our which browser based. This one in particular is not on the blockchain. The 360 PAM Southern Chapter metaverse, which Studio Kaizen have wanted to build for last year's World Architecture. So again, this is another browser-based space, and finally the AR/XR metaverse, which is the one you're seeing right now. This is a metaverse. Let's talk about the metaverse architecture and assets. Again, virtual stuff. Everything physical that you can think of, you can convert it to virtual. Virtual amusement parks, theaters, concerts, conferences, offices, so on. Also create cities. So it doesn't need to be small scale, very, very large scale cities, buildings, sculptures, textures. So, maybe texture a wall. Of course, since it's digital, you can sell it across the globe. So I've been fortunate enough to sell some of my virtual assets to some guy in the UK. And finally, people need content, they need experiences. Of course, as architects, we should be at the forefront of creating these experiences for them. Now, what is the future metaverse hardware? So if you take a look at the bottom left-hand corner, that's the virtual boy. That one was built in 1990, I believe. From that, uh, we've advanced to the top left-hand image, which is the Oculus. So that one is a more mobile way of experiencing the metaverse, or XR rather. We're going to be downscaling the technology to a pair of glasses in the near future. So there's already some prototypes of Lenovo kind of using the glasses as a small way of stuff. And finally, I believe that the future metaverse technology is going to be so small that could potentially fit it in eye as a contact lens. So this one is also currently in development by there's a company overseas, I forgot which name. They're currently developing a computer which can fit into it. So that's we're coming to the end of the sharing session. So I would like to end this sharing session with a quote. Architecture stands with one leg in a world that's 3,000 years old and another leg in the 21st century. this almost play-like stretch makes our profession surprisingly deep. To say that we're the last profession that has a memory, or the last profession whose roots go back 3,000 years, still demonstrates the relevance of those long days. Initially, I thought we were actually misplaced to deal with the present, but what we offer the present is memory. With that, I would like to end this sharing session. But thank you.
Wow, amazing, right? Everyone's like shocked. This also is my first time also. Not first time, like second time. It's always almost equivalent to the Andrei Shivkov's Somnium Space presentation a few months ago in Somnium Space in CoinGecko conference. Okay, now we have come to the Q&A session. I would like to invite Mr. Farik to come to stage together with Mr. Afi, the speaker, and myself. We will conduct the Q&A. Is it okay? All right, let's catch your breath first. Penat. You said just now a little bit gonna be a bit of pening kan? Do you guys feel pening just now? No, okay. Yeah. That means you guys are ready for VR and XR. Yeah, kan? So faham tak about the AR and VR? Faham? Orang cakap, some people say that to understand VR and AR is easy. VR is like Alice in Wonderland. You remember Alice? Not Deputy President Alice, but Alice that, you know, she went to another world. And then for AR, just imagine Pokemon Go. A few years ago, we were crazy going on the phone, catching animals at a park. Pokemon Go. Or if you can imagine that, for the older ones, can you imagine the ring? Yeah? Where the ghosts come out from the TV, catch you. So that's So we kickstart the Q&A session. Is a simple question. I mean, everyone been asking this, because you talk about tech today. You covered two subjects for architects, and at the same time, the technology of metaverse that will be incorporated in our design process in the future. I mean, for a new architect, how do you you can suggest for them to embark in this digital technology? Yeah.
New architect.
Maybe both lah. One is from the point of view, probably from the point of view of young architects, and then point of view of someone is actually. I know Mr. Parik. Why I invited him is actually he's been encouraging Afi to transform into a different kind of architects on the technology, and also PEM South chapter. So maybe probably Afi first.
Okay. For myself, I think is if any architects want to learn or want to embark on the metaverse, I believe to learn the software which is necessary to create the metaverse itself. So some of the software which I've mentioned earlier, those are not new software. Those have been around since the early 2000s. So, but they keep on improving the software. So I think again, like BIM is already have been with us for so long. I think architects also need to learn these different. So this type of softwares they are used by people in the gaming industry, develop games. So I think as architects, as experience makers, as placement, need to learn them too, because we are also creating experience. That would be my best advice. Technology comes and go, but
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Afi. How about Mr. Farik? How do you encourage? Because I know, like we as architects, kita very well pressured by operating our office with buying all the softwares for the operations. But now comes softwares that's coming for us to generate incomes. So can you share a little bit about how to encourage officers?
Oh, this will be an audience to. I think that we get caught in the situation in 2020, where especially small chapter like us, we are unable to move because of the pandemic. So a group of change maker, I think this is a concept that probably PAM can adopt. Change maker space is actually a brainstorming session that we did over online to actually suggest how actually PAMSO, being a smaller entity in a PAM institution, move with a new sets of younger generation. So we decided to go 100% digital, even though we do not we are not 100%. So I think what we did over the PKP, we created PAMSO created digital ideas. So one of them actually the product of our changemaker space created architects, young architects like Afi, and then a few other young architects. So we gave them the platform, beauty of PAM, to actually 30 years experience practices. But then I think they are not relevant to practice the way we practice. So we say, why not we give you a gallery, PAMSO gallery for World Architecture Day, and you created a digital content on top of that. So I think we actually try to influence our state government to actually support us in the lockdown period, to give us some money to actually started this. So since then, 2020, we have been encouraging a lot of graduates, a lot of young architects, we call it B40 Voice, to actually jump into digital. It started out with digital transformation, which is creating apps from our daily practice. So with senior architects, encourage them to look at those that you see from the scale of minimum fee, basic services, are actually an idea from a senior architect. So they say, we have been reading this since 1967. So why not change that into a digital transformation? So that's what they did. I am very grateful that I am very big supporting of B40 Voice. Young architect below 40 can do wonders. Except that the R&D in Malaysia, actually they have gone through, we also try to push them into sandbox, magic sandbox, theorem certification. So these are, I think, PAM also have a duty to actually encourage young practitioners to tell the government that architect digital transformation can actually be certified, because I think they are only the first group in magic. Imagine the construction industry and the innovative committee, only one architect registered to recognize their innovation. Innovation means we are not buying beam as a user. We encourage them to create their own digital practice in it and can be commercialized. So I think that's the Southern Chapter tagline since then. So I think now we are moving into a second phase where the state government has sponsored us in innovative digital. So whoever, all over Malaysia, you can jump into our changemaker space to actually invent anything and then create something for the better of our future generation architect.
Thank you, Mr. Farid. Well, funny you mentioned about digital transformation. Because architects usually forget about what is digital transformation. We always think about digital transformation as transforming our office with BIM. Those are operational transformation. But your business transformation in digital in terms of all the branding, the marketing, the financial values, how do you monetize, corporate structure, also it's important. At the same time, administration of the business as well in terms of capacity building and movement of the money transaction. Some of you must be wondering, you saw the metaverse that was designed by Mr. Afi, AR, VR, XR. Is it so difficult to do? Do you think it's difficult to do? What do you say? What do you think? Is it difficult to do? Gamers does it every day, but what about architects? We have beam models, high polygon, and the models here is low polygon. Is it difficult to do, Mr. Afi? Can you share? As simple as what? Yeah.
If you're talking about the 3D modeling aspect of the metaverse, of course, you are architects. You already have your designs, your buildings, your 3D model. All of those can be incorporated. Now, what I would say is the challenge is the interaction aspect of the metaverse. So, even doing something such as transporting from one metaverse to the other requires understanding of coding, essentially, to add that functionality to your building. Let's say if I wanted to create a building which you can change the tiles, then you need code or to implement that function of changing the tiles inside of it. There are a lot of ways to do it, but there might not be one solution, but there's always going to be the more efficient solution. I believe I'm still learning a lot of these. As you go on, you will obviously become much efficient. So I believe that's where the challenge is. Not at the 3D modeling. That one, semua ada AR.
I heard it is as simple as using SketchUp, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
You using your SketchUp model, bring it to low poly, and then bring it to softwares like Blender to actually change it to VR and transform into any of the engines. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Not that difficult, right? Everyone can do it. People say metaverse is difficult, but it's not. For architects, it's like kacang putih, like all the students is doing it. Okay, sidetrack a little bit. Going back to this morning session on SE4D, the apps itself. I mean, like, because like you share with us that could be a potential. We architects spend a lot of time managing projects, putting our staff there to go to the site, and then that's actually clients sometimes ask to go every week or every day, and especially we have the OCOW. How did you inspire to create that software? Because it's quite comprehensive and holistic, and looking at many angles of our building construction, and also the chain of making the building.
Okay, so when stepping from, when graduating from part 2 to the working space, of course, as architects, you would like to spend more time on your creative design. Fortunately, I spend a lot of time managing projects. So that takes a bulk of my time. So by creating these apps, you could potentially, reduce the time taken to manage the project, and will leave you more time to design. Of course, as architects, will be your passion lah.
What do you think, Mr. Farid? And actually the apps work? Do you think that the apps will be can the developer will adopt it? And then I heard that Afi has presented in CIDB, right, for the grant, right? So like, will contractors and architects and developers adopt this kind of technology in the future?
As far as the contract that he has received from the state government, I'm not on preview on that. But as far as a PAM duty is actually, we wanted to share whatever innovation work by young architects we put in our form, so that it's another Studio Kaizen architect. But one thing I noticed when we do the workshop, actually they are all started with the graduate architects. When they created the apps, because of the flow of the apps that we saw from the presentation, all those graduate architects actually have to learn A to Z when they are doing the apps. So eventually, I think he got his AR due to the work that they have to do in the apps. So that means whatever the apps is doing is whatever the LAM Part 3 is actually, module. So they have to understand the statutory first. So then I think I was asked by their collaborators to actually do workshops, Southern chapter. So I think eventually they got certified, processed by CIRIM, by MTech. All these are actually another challenges by architects. So I think to be recognized on our works, traditionally we got award for our creativity design. However, in the real big construction industry of 32 billion, architects actually contribution where I represented the industry as part of PAM, PIDB CREAM. Unfortunately, we are the least represented of our creativity. So that could not be, the imbalance had to be corrected. So that's why we keep pushing for the younger group under your group also to actually quickly show to the CIDB, show to the government that architects are actually so much creative even in the digital transformation. So I hope our works are actually paving the way for the new generation of architects to actually continue. We now need, like in Johor, we say JDT 1, JDT 2, JDT 3. So that we don't create a big gap, suddenly we disappear with a lot of younger architects. And I think in Southern Chapter also, we try to actually recognize skills as part of the skills, part of the employment issue. So if you have BIM, you create your own app, so you brand yourself. So I think you got many choices, or makan gaji, or you create your own entrepreneur business. That's what we meant by our change maker space.
Thank you, Mr. Farid. I think I remember when I was in Johor a few years ago, when before pandemic, Forest City. If you go to the Forest City gallery in the hotel, and inside there's a gallery. There's already showing the whole construction. They monitor construction by drones, and then there's all the system there inside there. And it's quite inspiring, and they take all the best technologies in terms of creating the island itself. That's much more inspiring, and Johor is privy to that kind of technology at that time. Now we'd like to open to the audience. Anyone would like to ask any questions? You can share anything you want. You can ask anything. Ada tak? Any questions? Ada. Malu-malu ni. Apa ke? Simple question pun. No question is a stupid question.
Questions, early lunch.
Oh, you want an early lunch, It's announcement. Someone is. Itulah blocking, boleh move dekat. Ada question? Anything? Kawan ada any question? There's one question. Wah, architect.
I'm not familiar with this. My question is not so much of a question, but more an observation. Why? Of the why we're actually doing this. Very interesting. There was a couple of years ago, Noah Harari, fact of I and my of, and he started out with a history of APL. Why we are the most successful and planet. Reason being because we're so flexible, and we're able to communicate, and we're able to kind of create fiction in our head, create things which is not even there. For instance, the concept of nationhood, the concept of religion. So I think, in a way, the reason why there is to me, there's a second revolution to human being was that the very fact that we are now creating a new kind of fiction that we are not able to achieve because of the failure of certain things. Like, for instance, for many, many years, we always believed that the world is what we is. But actually created only by a few white men. The concept of nationhood was actually created by a few colonial powers. Religion was created only by a few prophets and religious leaders. So I think by creating a new kind of framework of, say, fiction, which is actually in a way kind of free us again for us to be able to create something totally different. So, but in that sense, there is also a danger because over the years, when we Homo sapiens become a modern, we went through a lot of mistakes. Right? And then what we did was that we created a lot of rules and regulations and policies to regulate humanity. Now we are entering into a new phase of human fiction values without any kind of restrictions. I mean, I know you have censored half of what you probably potentially could do with metaverse because of the audience, but we know what the other half is going to be. You know what that's the other half is going to be. It's going to be a lot of criminals, crooks, pornography, sex. I mean, there were already story people have been raped inside the metaverse, right? So I think it's very interesting because I think for your generation, which is very different from my generation, your generation frustrated with my generation, they created all the problems for the world. We created climate change, we created a lot of problems for the world, right? But now what your generation is actually is fighting back. But you're fighting back virtually, which is great. But what I would like to know is that how do we now find a common denominator between that physical world and the virtual world to something that really benefit in the real world? How do we do that? How would you cross that bridge to find that commonality? Thanks.
I thought that was a statement, not a question. I don't know. I think we're still in the infancy stage. It's not set in stone. There's still a lot of this on my side. On my side.
You are Gen Z kan?
Still lagi, I'm still young. So on my end, there's still a lot of exploration to do. The potential is massive. So I'm not even sure if my generation could fully, I should say, fulfill the potentials of the metaverse. Is so big. It's really, really big.
Apa ni? Cik Azwan. Arkitek Azwan I think that is. So basically, like you rightly put lah kan, all those what you mentioned, and then where we stand here as Gen Y, having explored both the old times, the hard times, and also the new technology from the internet age until now. We most of us as architects, we are trying to make the balance before the worst comes, because the kids are already in Roblox and Minecraft. That is where, if you do control now as an architect, control the environment, there's no control at all in the future. So, but having said that, we have a responsibility to actually manage between the real world and the virtual world. Because a lot of people are talking about, when they talk about metaverse, it's only fully immersive. But we as architects, we should be looking at metaverse as a service to the real world. So a lot of the developers are already talking about extension, renovated space from the physical space like rumah. You can have additional space within the metaverse. With the additional space, you can reduce the plain area of the housing, the building. That itself helps the carbon footprint of the project. So kita as the young, kita could help to actually create the balance of how the future generation will act. If not, it will be uncontrollable. But it's a very, very good point, what you state.
So the last slides that you showed was Aramco House to resonate very similar to what Frampton was saying about the anachronistic disposition of architecture, meaning that our technology is 3,000 years old. And then we are dealing with the 31st century problems. So there was such dichotomy between what was our ability to do physically versus what is the need of current situation. But I guess to move forward, maybe this is something that I can put forward to Pam and also to you. Is that how can we effectively use metaverse? One of them was, remember in those days that we used to draw with pen and my generation, and then you guys still know how to do it. And then after that we moved to CAD, and after that we do 3D, and then we do model in order to visualize our ideas. But maybe perhaps the next step is to offer clients for them to actually virtually enter the spaces, which some developers already started. And then now you can even build, say, I mean, you can create Putrajaya, for instance, lah, you know, or KL, for instance, in a metaverse. And then every time when you build a building, you can actually put your building inside that cityscape and then see whether how does it fit to the overall cityscape and things like that. So I think we can that actually moving forward. That to me that's the most beneficial for both architects, developer, as well as the policymakers like the BKL and stuff. So I think that's my question to you.
It's a good idea, but be careful. Don't be trapped in the old ways where we add more service to our non-payment to our basic services. That's why, hence, Studio Kaizen and some of the architects are opening digital agencies. They get paid, see, rather than the service under the architecture firm. So we've tried a few, memang tak bayar, so it's free. But when we put in other vehicles, the payment, yeah. So these are the things that architects needs to learn, because I know for a fact that there is a lot of complaints sekarang in Singapore. Young architects not being paid, not because the office doesn't want to pay, but they cannot collect, right? Any other questions? Interesting questions. Jawab apa kat atas? Anyone? Ada tak? Apa? Kalau tak ada, I nak tanya soalan kat Afi. Soalan susah ni. Terlalu susah ni. Very difficult. Okay, for your apps, what storage system do you use? Because I understand, like if you want to do an apps, you need storage system. And it's either paid monthly over a subscription or many years, or you can actually pay per use. In your apps, SK4OD system of apps, what's your storage system? Do you use AWS or Arweave or whatever? What?
So for our system and apps, we use on AWS, for the standard, because one of the mandates we would like to the government project. One of four service providers. One's Amazon, Bill, and I forgot the other, which is why we use Amazon. Now the business, to use that, it's a monthly subscription, but it's based on the amount of storage that you use. So if let's say you use gigabytes, compared to you using 100 gigabytes, amount paid will be different. Depends on what use case you for. If you have a lot of photos, it should be manageable. If you have a lot of videos, especially the 4K, 8K, high resolution cameras, it's going to be very, very expensive.
Itulah. A lot of technology is happening. Recently, I heard Hatton Group. Do you know Hatton Group? In Melaka, they do development. They appoint an architect from Johor, Alan Quay, to do their metaverse and apps development. Wow. Developers of overseas already appointing Malaysian architects to do. And then recently also I heard Sam Dabi also appointed Kawa Rizmi to look into the metaverse roadmap for their company. So there's a lot of opportunities within the realm of metaverse. So if there is no question, I would like to give the panelists a final say. I start with Mr. Farid. Anything you want to say to everyone before we end this session?
I think said people are changing very fast. I think again I am of the opinion platform actually encourage all the provided more evidence. But should be celebration of creating something rather than, because if we use Beam budgets like Beam jobs, I do a lot now. However, those architects who are able to create, innovate, this platform are actually rare and not given a proper, especially like in Johor, we are being tasked to actually deliver digital innovation to a B40 rakyat. Means technology, digital, able to help. I think those PRS that Architect Afi was introduced just now, actually created by a lot of B40 complaint in a public housing project that their defect are not being attended expeditiously. So they go to newspaper, they go to politician to complain their defect, the house defect are not attended properly. A lot of architects actually summoned also for not taking our services under FC, final completion DLP, that because of our fee is 5%, balance of that. So I think we rarely attended to the defect. So it comes to a big issue in public housing project. So the task was at that time, us using our digital experience, how to actually encourage the younger architects to provide another supplementary services to your basic services. So supplementary services, the architect Afi are saying, actually are not attached to basic services. So they can be paid according to subscription fee, monthly fee, annual fee. So it provides an alternative economic solution to our basic services that we always fight with the developers. And the funny thing about it is when they talk about using apps created by an architect, they never not pay. Every month, I think a lot of architects who's using the system in Johor, they actually been paid, but the basic fee they didn't pay. So it created an alternative fee. I have presented a paper to PAM last year, POP, that I am encouraging innovation under the supplementary agreement for the viability of our practices. We talk so much about basic fee, nothing changed, but then technology comes, innovation comes, so you can actually create a different contract out of supplementary services. And I think a lot of developers, especially public housing, that are creating big units like Prima, like all these PPR. So I think they cannot manage so many units, using a manual monitoring. So I think PAM should actually, encourage this to your younger architects. So that is actually another side of practices that we can actually, take advantage of it. For that, I think hopefully we, especially PAM Southern Chapter, we will be able to encourage more of this opportunity.
Mr. Farid, give it a hand to Mr. Farid. All right, and Mr. Afi, any? Okay.
Technology is very scary. For even though I've shared about the architect profession or the construction industry that left behind, but we're currently the technology is moving so fast. Earlier, you were talking about from transition from pencil to. But the future is going to be procedural design, or meaning you use the computer to design everything. Meaning you put the parameters. Say you need 10 units, put your setbacks, whatever, then the computer will generate it for you. So I think that's where the future is heading, and it's scary because as an architect, you might get replaced with a digital system design. I don't have the answer to that more of a wonderment, but technology is scary. Thank you very much for the time. Hope you've you learned very much.
Thank you, Mr. Afi. All right. So my final words would be: architecture is a father, mother of art, but creative economy is coming. So we have to buckle ourselves with whatever tools or technology and be part of the next movement of the future. With that, thank you very much.